Okay, welcome guys to episode 14 of Prepared, your weekly TBC breakdown. So we got a lot of stuff to cover as always. Apologies for the delay for this one because obviously launch week was insane and we could have done
Back and
this
forth.
last week, but we may have both fallen asleep during the podcast, or it would have been a very insane podcast. Either way, we chose to delay it until we were both rested and recovered and ready. So we are back now today. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. We will have Tetsu joining us in the second hour as well. So Tetsu's gonna hop on a little bit later to go over kind of just breaking down Progress World First strategies, what they did, like what made them successful versus other guilds and all of that. Because there's a lot of rumor going around, like what did Progress actually do? There's a lot of like
They cheated.
yeah. There's a lot of like, and it's like it's hard to tell who's saying the right things because like everyone's like, there's a lot of salt going around as well. It's good to get the info from the source to see what they actually did.
If Tetsu comes on and he's like, "We cheated," like there's a lot of rumors out there that we did some shady shit, and truth is, we did. Oh man.
But
I mean, there were some bugs they reported, right? There were bugs they reported, I think. So
yeah, there were bugs, and I mean GMs were watching them as well. I'm pretty sure GMs were watching them as well.
The whole thing. Is this some? Like what is it? I think back in the day, Athene, he hit like level 80 first or something like that, right? Like that was a really big like claim to fame for him. Was Wrath Lich King hitting level 80 first? Was the way they did that was I believe they were mob tagging in dungeons, and then like everybody was like leaving the party and then rejoining the party, and he's getting full experience or something like that for the mob tagging. And then I believe they took that away from him later.
Yeah, they banned him. Yeah,
so
they took that away.
So it's like if this were bannable, like I'm pretty sure Progress would already be banned, kind of thing. So yeah, that just take that with for what it is. They've banned Athene for something where it was leveling as fast as possible using some type of exploit, and he got the hammer. So yeah.
Okay, as well as that, we're going to cover, I guess, just the basic Karazhan rundowns, how classes are performing. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about with Prebis as well, how significant Prebis is, our plans going forward. There's still a lot of TBC bugs we can talk about. Don't worry, guys, your weekly bug report is still here. We still have bugs to talk about. And then as well as
repaired.
That, repaired your weekly
I love that.
bug podcast. And then we have honors coming in for farming and arena starting next week and everything as well. But yeah, guys, we're back. How you doing, Zyrene? We haven't seen each other in a little while.
It has been I have a headache. Like I definitely have not drank enough water or slept enough in the last week. Like even leading up into it, because before TBC launched, I leveled a Draenei Shaman to 60, and I leveled a Blood Elf Paladin to 60. And now I have a 70 tank that's all ready to go and has all my stuff and done all my raid lockouts, and my rogue is 64. So I'm already working on my second character in the first 6 days after coming off of leveling 2 characters straight to 60. So I am dead on the inside and a little bit on the outside. So it's just been a week of work that doesn't feel like work but is work, and it's been draining but at the same time very fulfilling, and it's been actually a really exciting launch. I'm actually like really pleased with the way the game came out despite playing on Fairlina. So
I tell you, man, the Fairlina, the little asterisk that you put there is a whole different experience leveling on Fairlina, because I leveled the first character on Whitemane and I leveled the second one on Fairlina, and you'd think they'd be similar because the populations are similar, but no, Fairlina players are I think the word is they're assholes in a lot of ways. In 11, never have I been just randomly killed by someone out of nowhere for no apparent reason after I just leave them for like 10 minutes. Just turn around and like, oh, I'm done. Okay, I'm gonna kill this guy. He's next to me now. And just walk off. Yeah, it seems to only happen a lot on Fairlina, on my Fairlina run.
Yeah, Fairlina is a really interesting server. I feel like it's immensely populated, even more so than it was before. Like I don't really recognize the server anymore. And good lord, fun story. So you know how the auction house hasn't been working very well, at least on Fairlina at all. It's taken minutes for things to load, and it's been terrible. Today was supposed to be a hotfix for that. If you join LFG, when I join the LFG channel, the Looking for Group channel on Fairlina, my game lags. Like it doesn't just lag when I join. It literally, like, I'll be flying and it hitches. because the chat is moving so fast. Unironically, Fairlina has too many people to find a group.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, counterintuitive, but it's like it's too populated, so it's actually harder to find a group because there's too many people looking for group, if that makes sense. So everything just like you type like LFG, like Heroic Botanica, and then like immediately your message is like 6 up, and like everybody's spamming their same message like 5 times because their message had the same thing happen. So like one person spams 5 times, everybody starts spamming 5 times, and it gets really cluttered. So yeah, it's an experience being on Fairlina.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like the Fairlina, I don't know, man. I gotta level my second rogue. It's getting there. It's up to 62, and then I'm just gonna go hardcore and try to get him to 70 by this weekend. But it's it's a rough, because the second one I'm doing is questing as well, which is very different from grinding. And questing, you definitely get griefed quite a bit more. Quite a bit more if you do open world and Fairlina.
Yeah, I started doing the same thing. Like my first one was just dungeon mindless grinding, getting up there in the first like 40 hours, and then the second one, my rogue, I started doing questing, which was really nice to play on a rogue that way, because I know that my next character is going to be like my prop paladin, and I'm gonna have to go back to dungeons, right? So I don't want to do 3 characters in a row that are all dungeons. I want to at least experience like Blade's Edge Mountain and like the questing in like Shadow Moon or Netherstorm, as opposed to just sitting in slave pens for hours. So
slave pens and Sethek halls. Don't forget Sethek halls.
Yeah,
as well.
You're right.
You get some variety. You get 2 instances.
God, dude, that was really bad. It's my leveling group. Like we hit 64, and then they were like, "Let's go to Monotombs." And then some guy in our guild was like, "Don't go to Monotombs." And it was like, because apparently they had gone to Monotombs at 64, and their tank like couldn't hit anything because the level differences mean a lot in TBC. Like something being 2 levels above you or 3 levels above you as a melee means like you just can't hit that thing. So they were like struggling, and they were like, "Don't come here. Just stay in the slave pens, okay? Just stay in the slave pens," because they were just dying over and over again.
I feel like that's a mistake everyone made, right? So explain to people that there's 2 routes, or 2 main ways you can level. One is just like the questing route, and the other one is the hardcore dungeon grinding route. And the dungeon grinding route is well, I guess I can open up the page because I have a page on my site here. So it's basically just like a route that everyone does. So you go like BF into slave pens, into mana tombs, into Sethek halls, and then you start your Karazhan attunement. That's basically the rough route that everyone is going through, and it's
that route.
Everyone is super. They do BF at first, and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's great. We're getting good XP. Let's go into slave pens." And then they do slave pens. Then it starts hitting you that you're doing this for the next 5 bazillion years. And then I think what happens is everyone gets to around 63, 64-ish in slave pens. They're like, "Guys, can we go to another dungeon? I'm sick of slave pens. We've been doing this for hours upon hours. Let's go somewhere else." So then they go to mana tombs, but then they go too early. Because like really they should have waited till like 65 plus or something, but then they end up in Monotombs, and at that point they've committed. They don't want to go back, and they're just stuck in Monotombs, getting less XP than they were getting in slave pens. But they also forget that if you go to Monotombs early, that means that's a whole extra level you're spending in Monotombs, which ends up almost just as much time spent in Monotombs as you would have spent in slave pens anyway.
No, that's exactly what happened to us. Yeah. We went to there at 65, and then we got to like 67, and people are like, "Let's go to Sethek halls." And like Sethek halls is like the way I'm doing the next leveling route is I'm going to Blood Furnace until 61. Then I'm going to slave pens from 61 to 67. I'm staying in slave pens until 67. I'm going all the way from 66 to 67 there, and then I'm going to Monotombs from 67 to 68, and then I'm doing Sethek halls from 68 to 70. Or I'm going to stay in Monotombs from 67 to 69. Like the idea of like out leveling something is a lot more useful than being under leveled for it. Because if you go too early or right on time, the experience you get may be higher when you clear it, but you're going to clear it a lot slower. Yeah. Like when you start getting into a groove in slave pens and you get to the end of it and you're like, "I'm 66. It's like, your runs are really fast. You've got it down. You're doing 12-minute lockouts. Why would you go to Monotombs and try something new? Just keep going there and just get those 12-minute lockouts over and over again, and then you're fine." Like that was the thing. You can't get greedy with it because you're actually going to get less. When you out level something and it becomes trivial, that's when you should really like stay that extra level there. because it's really going to help you in the future. Like you said, don't go somewhere else a level early.
Yeah, and as well as that, I think once you get into like mana tubes isn't too bad. You just have to interrupt like the casters to keep taking people's mana. But Sethek Halls, you actually need a little bit of coordination, especially if your group doesn't have a lot of CCs. There's some growing pains, like for sure at the first few Sethek Hall runs, there was a bunch of dying because people didn't know which ones to CC, which ones to pull, how to do the pulls and such. It takes a while to get into that groove, to get into that Sethek Hall grooves.
They all look the same. They all look equally threatening. Like group makeup is actually really interesting too, because there were some groups that like were struggling with some raids. Like there was I think the number 1 and 2 leveling groups in my raid team were mostly comprised of warlocks and mages. And so they had like warlocks, mages, priests, and warriors. And then in my group was like me, another warrior, a hunter, a warlock, and a shaman. And the shaman made a world of difference. Like the shaman was actually probably, in my opinion, like by far the best healer to level with. Not just because of Wind Fury, but because Tremor Totem is ridiculously helpful in not wiping. Because the fears in the instances, random, like even in slave pens, the fears, like I started leveling again and we didn't have a shaman. And I was just like, this is hell. Is this what other people were having to go through? Because I got spoiled by Tremor Totem. I got spoiled by a really good shaman who uses Tremor Totem well. Like the guy like has a Tremor Totem down, lets it break a fear, and then immediately places another one. So he like double breaks fears. It was like really interesting. Because there's sometimes like in packs where there's like 2 champions or something or whatever they're called in slave pens, and you got like double feared, and he knows like how to like actually play around that. He's a really, really good shaman player. So I was spoiled by that. So I think like the best dungeon leveling group is something like a prop paladin with a shaman healer, and then whatever else you want, like maybe a mage and a warlock. Actually, probably 2 mages with Blizzard, because the Blizzard is really powerful.
You know what? I really got to experience the reroll experience, because I had 2 rerolls in my group, 2 warrior rerolls.
Yes.
And it's a fun experience when you have a warlock who has a fel guard up, and the fel guard just constantly is just charging in there, just randomly just charging in there. Every time a pull comes in, you're like, okay, is this fel guard good? Yep. He's running in there again. Yeah. He just stunned the mob like way too far from the group. Okay, yep. That's just gonna happen every group, because he doesn't know how to control his fel guard.
It's the warrior. He knew how to control it. He was just playing it like his warrior.
I'm glad that once they hit 70, though, they get rid of the fel guard, and we never have to see that stupid guy again, because they swap to the other specs. But yeah, Jesus Christ, it was an ongoing joke in our group that this guy just, his pet, like it was constantly just every pull, like every single pull, the pet was just running in there.
The re-rolling is great, dude. Like the people who, it's so funny because people are like, these boosted people won't know how to play their class. It's like even the people who aren't boosted don't know how to play their class. It's a whole new experience. So,
yeah. But I mean, it was interesting. Did you prioritize reputation for your grind at all? Because there's kind of
Not
2
really.
schools to thought for the leveling. Is that my group tried this, but then we kind of bailed on it towards the end, because it gets really hard towards the end. We did it for most of it up to like 68. So for people listening, basically what you do is you try to get to Honored in every single dungeon before you move on to the next one. Or rather, as soon as you get to Honored, you start considering moving to the next one. But if you do that, at some point it gets kind of hard, right? Like the reputation guide I was following at one point said to start doing Black Morass at 68. And we did that, but Jesus Christ, is Black Morass hard at 68. It's not worth it. We could have got the rep there, but it was faster to go level to 70 and then come back and do Black Morass later.
Yeah. See, I didn't do the rep stuff. It was like the first one was like, let's just do Blood Furnace until 61. We did it based on level break points, not so much reputation, which did lead us to be like, I was revered in like almost everything except for like Lower City and Hellfire Peninsula and Honor Hold. So those are ones like I have to go back for. But luckily, a lot of people want to do Lower City because of the ring. They don't mind farming reputation. And there's also like really good Shadow Labs farm for like the first, like up until the second boss and then reset stuff for rep. And then also same thing with Shattered Halls. People want to farm Shattered Halls. All the mages and warlocks want to farm Shattered Halls so that they get the Thrallamar or the Honor Hold caster weapon, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually really easy to find groups for those. So I kind of lucked out in that department with the ones that I didn't get my rep up for. But yeah, it's I didn't really follow the rep stuff because it felt like it was just easier to get to 70, do your attunements, be ready for the raids, and then go back and start worrying about badges. So yeah, that's kind of the route that we took.
Yeah. I think on my second and third character, I'm more doing the hybrid route. I think that's what everyone's doing in general, is that everyone went really hard. Well, most of the hardcores went really hard on the first tune, and then they decided, okay, second, third tune, we'll kind of do a little bit of everything. We're not gonna go as crazy because everyone's kind of super burnt out and just only doing dungeons for 10 hours a day at that point. But it was kind of funny seeing everyone
only 10 hours.
Everyone in the WoW community slowly losing their sanity by like around day 4. I was looking at some of the streams and everyone was just exhausted. They hadn't slept properly in like the entire week. And this is why we actually delayed the podcast, right? Because like we were actually set to do the podcast, but then I was sitting there like really tired that night, and I was like, man, we could do the podcast, but if we both do the podcast, it's gonna be, I'm gonna have to rush topics to figure out what to do, and then we're gonna be so tired. I don't even know if my brain's gonna work properly for talking about topics.
Somebody came in my chat and was like, "Can you tell Snow to level faster?" I was like, "What?" I think you were like 67 or 68 or something like that around the time we were gonna do the podcast.
Yeah, I think I was like 1 or 2 levels behind you. I think because my group was taking a break. But then I just gave up, and then I was just like, whatever, I'm just questing the 70. So I just did like the last 2 levels by myself because I didn't want to wait for them.
Yeah, we had an issue with that. There was a guy who we were going to sleep because of the we didn't really go to sleep. We were more like, we're taking a break for the server maintenance, like 24 hours after the thing had gone up, like, you know, the 7 a.m. stuff. And that lasted 2 hours. And then one of our guys fell asleep. And so we waited for him. And then we were like, fuck it, leave him behind. And so we just started leveling without him. And his name is Onthalok, and now we call him On the Clock because he fell asleep. We call him On the Clock. And he's just getting like roasted for it the entire time because he like delayed us so hard. And then what ended up happening is we out leveled him by like a level and a half. So there's like parts where we're like 68 and he's 66, and he can't do the same dungeon as us anymore. And so it became harder for us to level in a streamlined fashion. And then 3 of us hit 70. So there's 13 70s in the guild, and 10 of them are doing Karazhan. The other 3 are just sitting there like, what the fuck do we do now? Like, okay, great. Like, good job, I guess. We hit 70, and it felt like there was no reason to rush 70 because I didn't do Kara until Saturday. I didn't do Gruul until Monday. Like, it really felt like for me, rushing to 70 was a waste of my time because there weren't enough people who did it with me. Right, that was the thing that really sucked. So,
yeah. For me, I was mostly just rushing to 70 just because I have to do 3. Like I'm raiding in 3 raids, so I have to get my characters to 70 as quick as possible. Otherwise, I can't raid. But yeah, for sure. Like rushing to 70 was interesting because God, trying to keep one group together, especially if you're doing it in a group, like trying to keep one group together for that long a period of time without anything screwing up, it was so hard. Because especially because I think a lot of people expected the leveling to go a little bit faster. So at least a lot of people in my group were like, by day 3, they expected to be completely done and just grinding rep. But we still had a little bit more to go because we were doing a little bit of a reputation thing, which slowed us down. And they people just weren't prepared for day 4. Day 4, people were breaking down. People were like, I kind of have stuff planned in the middle of the day, even though I'm off because I thought we'd be done by now. So I think by the 4th day, it got really hard to keep the group together because, like, the other thing is as well, someone levels just a little bit ahead of you guys. Like, he starts taking all the experience. He starts getting like more experience than everyone else because he's higher level than everyone else, which is what happens as well if someone gets ahead.
It was an experience, man. Especially with the launch too, like on Fairlina having like all the DDoS or whatever. Like, I actually have to say, like, big shout out to Blizzard. Because even though I was on Fairlina and our server was the one that experienced like the most queues or the most like downtime, I still think the launch was handled a lot better than almost any other recent Blizzard release that I can remember. Like, it's definitely better than Diablo 3. It's definitely better than Classic launch. And the lack of aversion to add layers really allowed us to all play the game. That was the thing. Like, sure, it was DCing a decent amount, but like nobody was getting stuck in queue for that long. think the longest I was ever in queue was 45 minutes, and that was right on release when I was going in at like, an hour before. So I still made it in on time. But they kept adding layers. There was legitimately like 15 layers at one point on Fairlina just to have everybody in. And I have to say, like, that was a good move by Blizzard to preserve people's experience of the game, as opposed to make them wait in queue, right? And I thought that was actually a really good call, like a really good call. Yeah. So I was very happy with that.
Yeah, I agree. It was surprisingly smooth. Almost, it was like, because the portal even opened, I think, a few minutes early as well. Yeah, everyone went in. Actually, I have I'll just play this footage in the background. But yeah, I was literally just sitting there waiting for the portal, and then everyone's like, "Wait, guys, the portal's open. It's already open," and we didn't expect it to be open already because it was kind of early by a few minutes. But it was surprising. It was almost like I was waiting for something bad to happen because there was no queues. There was no like horrible lag or anything. It was just, I think we got up to 13, 14 layers as well on white main. And it was all perfectly fine, perfectly playable. Like, we didn't have any issues at all. It was very smooth. And then obviously I heard from people on Felino who were like, "Hey guys, yeah, must be fun to be playing right now." I think Bob came in my chat and he was saying, "Yeah, must be fun to be inside Blood BF right now and not disconnecting every 2 minutes." Mm-hmm. But like, I don't even know if I can blame Blizzard for that, right? Because it's just like someone DDoSed them. What can you do, really?
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a streamer server, so I get it. Like, that's the one that people would target if they were going to target a server. So, yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty... How long did that last, by the way, the DDoS attacks on Felina and such?
Not too long, to my knowledge. Like, we were able to play at least like maybe 2 hours in, I would say. It wasn't that long, but it did spoil a lot of people's idea of like what a release should look like, kind of thing. So, yeah. It was interesting. No, yeah.
But yeah, no, I had a great launch. It was really fun. Apart from the lack of sleep, but I feel like that's just the go-to with MMOs launches. Yeah, that's the go. That's the experience you want. The lack of sleep, the really tired, but then you get that accomplishment at the end.
Yeah, you want to love a game so much that you choose it over sleep, right? Like that's the feeling that you get as a kid, where it's just like, your parents are like, "Go to sleep," and you're like, "Okay," and you fake going to sleep, come back up. That, to the point where they had to take your computer power cable. Oh man, my parents did do that to me. They took my computer power cable, and I actually got a new one from a kid at school. Yeah, I had a spare power cable. Suck it, mom. Oh god.
I mean, the best was like, I used to do that as well, but like because the keyboard makes the most sound if you're trying to sneak through stuff. The keyboard's what gives you away, so you got to be like pressing the keys really softly if you're a kid to try to.
Before I had a mechanical keyboard, yeah, it was like that. Now mechanical keyboards are just like you can't hide it. But it just feels so good. The tactile feedback's so good.
But I with how many layers there were at the launch, I almost feel like the questing guys, because everyone avoided questing because they thought it'd just be a mess in open world. But I feel like the guys that quested at the start may have actually had an advantage because there was so many layers, there was barely anyone in each layer.
Yeah, there were people who like did a hybrid, and I think the hybrid was definitely the best. But yeah, it's people thought they'd just be getting ganked over and over again. Nah, everybody went to dungeons. Is interesting how organized the release was, because also there were so many layers that going out and doing quests, like nobody was actually around you because there were just so many layers. The chance that like 30 people are all on the same layer doing the same quest as you was really low.
I mean, the funny thing is it's actually harder to do quests now than it was at launch, because now there's actually less layers. They kind of turned it down a little bit more. Now it's actually harder to do the quest than it was at launch. Now there's actually competition.
And then a level 70 on a flying mount swoops down and just kills you and then goes away.
Oh god. I'm still using the slow mount on my one character that's 70 because that guy didn't have enough gold. Oh, he has gold, but he needs to save that for other stuff. So man, like, why is the non-epic mount so slow? Like, why is it 60%?
I'll be honest. Like, I bought the epic one, and I still have buyer's remorse over it because I wish I had just purchased instead 4 of the Harris Pilton bags, the 22 slot bags, right?
Yeah.
Because those are 1,200 gold each, right? So 5 of those is 6K, just like buying flying plus all the other stuff that you need, like the regular flying, the epic mount, and the epic flying. That's 6K as well. I kind of wish I had just spent the 6K on the 22 slot bags, because those are, I didn't get Oni bags or anything like that, so that would be 6 slots.
You have no
that'd
Oni
like,
bags?
No, that'd be like 24 slots more. And I'm like, I would probably make more gold being able to hold 24 more things every time I go out to farm than farming things faster by moving around the map faster. Because I do spend a lot of time in dungeons right now. So I think it would have been a better gold maker for me being able to hold more things. Because if you think about it, if I'm able to hold like 2 more things or 24 more things that are each worth anywhere from 2 to 8 gold, like on average, it's 6 times 24. I'm making over 100 gold more every time I come back from a dungeon. So I just have to make a few more trips and be able to actually like save up and get to epic flying that much faster. Otherwise, right now, epic flying doesn't really help me make too much more money faster. To get the bags, right? Because it's like, which one helps you get the other one more? I feel like the bags help you get the epic flying more than the epic flying helps you get the bags, unless you're double gathering professions, right? Then I'd say the epic is definitely worth it.
So, I mean, have you seen how insane the prices on blacksmithing got for a little while? For a while, if you were a miner at the start of launch, Jesus, you cleaned up if you were a miner at the start. I saw people paying crazy amounts for fell steel and things like that.
Like I'm a miner on my warrior, but the problem is I just got the hunter crit scope from Karazhan, so I'm spending all of my mining stuff on getting my engineering up to 375, which is actually a lot harder than I thought it would be, because I'm not trying to spend money and break the bank. I have to go out and like farm all the stuff myself, and these poor hunters are gonna have to wait like a few more days before I can get them their crit scopes and stuff. So we'll see, but it's just
Well, I mean, the real boss of leveling anything right now is, well, not now because we just fixed the auction house, man. Like, I drove myself insane trying to level jewel crafting, because I would sit there trying to buy the stupid jewel, and it just doesn't go through. And then sometimes someone else buys it before me, and I don't know if it's lagging. And you just sit there and you just stare at the screen asking why you're doing this, and it's taking you like an hour.
My friend was buying primal lives, like a primal life, and the auction house lagged, and yet he has a like a recording of this, and it legitimately like does not look like he buys this, but he does. He was buying primal lives and like input buy like a few times, and then it bought him the primal life hood pattern for 4K.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh no, dude. And it wasn't even like, one of those Weakauras things or anything like that. It just started inputting the commands later, and just like then it was like buy, and it just got to that point, and it was like, oh no, dude. Like that's the most tragic thing too, is when you lose money to the auction house because it's just not working right, or working the way that you expect it to work. It's just frustrating. I have like a bunch of living rubies that I sold just as bare living rubies. Actually, funny story. I had a living ruby, and there's a guy in my guild he sat there at the auction house all day leveling his jewel crafting by buying gems, cutting them, and then flipping them. He made so much gold, actually. He actually made a fuck ton of gold. Because even like the Jaggle pearls, you'd cut them into like the healing spirit and then sell it for like 9 gold, and those like were like 75 silver to buy. He made so much money. So I had him cut one of my living rubies, which were like 35 gold, into a bold living ruby, the strength one. And because I sat there and I went, should I cut this into an agility one? Because hunters are going to want the agility one. They're going to want that, the +8 agility. Hunters probably want that. And then I sat there and I went, no, cut it into the strength one, because ret paladins and warriors are more desperate to make their class good than hunters are. So they're more willing to spend money. So I put it up for 150 gold, and McConnell bought it. I have a screenshot of McConnell buying my living ruby for 150 gold, and I was like, that's it right there. That's the ret paladin that I was looking for. Oh man.
But I mean, speaking of the Weakauras exploit, we do have an update for people that don't know. This that we were talking about last week. So this, where the guy bought an item, and it looks like he bought the wrong one. right? Like he buys this item and then it buys him like the 900 gold one or whatever it was, and takes all his gold. So the final conclusion of all of that, for people that want to know, is that this was a malicious weak aura purposely spread on Skyrim server to target the Skyrim players and take their gold. So it was a weak aura that would infect you and then infect all your other weak auras and then hide itself. And then once it did its thing, it would delete itself. So it was super hard.
Was that Alliance?
Well, I think it was on both, but it was on Skyrim only has Horde, I think. Skyrim's one of the,
I was like, was the clip a Horde clip? I think was it a Horde clip?
Yeah, it's Horde. It's because it's Ogrimmar.
Yeah, because I was like, yeah, if it's on Skyrim, like it's targeting Horde because that's all there is on Skyrim. Like,
yeah,
jeez.
Yeah, but yeah, so it was specially targeting just Skyrim players. So this is why it was so widespread in Skyrim. It was literally just being spread around in Skyrim, and it was so hard to find because the only way they found this was that they put it on Reddit, and the Reddit detectives went to work and went through this guy's entire folder and found the weak aura that was hiding inside other weak auras. But the good news, guys, is you don't have to worry about this happening anymore because apparently both Blizzard and Weakauras have patched it to fix this vulnerability. So you can't do this anymore. You don't have to be scared about Weakauras doing this to you. But yeah, that was an interesting conclusion. But I bet the guy who did this is now worried because there's so much spotlight on it now. Blizzard definitely is tracking down who did this now because yeah,
dude, it's so funny. Somebody in my chat, I was in like a group and I was like, I'm gonna go use the auction house, and then somebody in my group was like, "Oh, I have a good weak aura for you," and the weak aura was called in all caps, "completely safe weak aura." I was like, I ain't touching that, dude. What is that? I kind of like, at the same time, I hate that stuff happens, but I love the memes that come out of all these things, like the bad like situations. And bad decisions always spawn great memes. It's just how the world works. So I for one love the fallout of it, but it's tragic that it happened and that something like that was I don't know if I don't think Blizzard ever did anything to like restore the guy's gold, right? They did
actually. They gave the guy. They made an exception. They made an exception because they said it was like this was like a kind of weird situation with someone purposely exploiting weak auras and auction house stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they made an exception, gave the guy gold back, which I think was nice of Blizzard to do. It's kind of like the old Blizzard, like back in the days when they used to be more hands-on and they used to be helping people like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're slowly but surely getting a little bit closer to the way that they used to be with like tickets and like players and kind of feeling more like they're on the players' side of things than the Blizzard that we've known that is like everybody calls them Activision Blizzard to kind of separate them from old Blizzard. So I kind of like the direction that things have been going lately.
So how was your first Karazhan clear?
It was really good. Like it was pretty much flawless. Like it was me and then like a really good paladin tank who had played private servers, like a super good player. So I was actually really, really pleased with the Karazhan. I actually think we had like the two best tanks in the guild in that Karazhan, so it made a big difference. I think tanks make a big difference in Karazhan. And it's like I'm trying to think of like the order in which I would say like tanks versus DPS versus healers, but I still feel like tanks are probably the most impactful thing. Like having good tanks really makes a big difference because tanks do a lot of the pulling. Hunters don't do a lot of the pulling in Karazhan.
Yeah,
at least right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the interesting things for my Karazhan was that I was actually almost top DPS in my Karazhan, and that was as a rogue, but I think a lot of that was just it's hard to tell because we had some rerolls as well. So the people I was beating were rerolls. So I don't know if they're
bad.
Yeah,
okay,
I think they're bad. Yeah, I think they just might not know how to do their rotations as well.
I'm looking up your name on Warcraft logs to find out who you're called bad. No.
But I was actually I think I was like 3rd overall DPS. That was after dying on 2 bosses because so my Karazhan was completely scuffed. Because we
died on 2 bosses, didn't lose world buffs. Feels really good. Good.
That's feel good. But we had people who never done Karazhan before. So like at times on Ilhoof, I literally died on Ilhoof because I was literally in the chains, right? And before the fight, we were like, guys, please break the people out of the chains. Okay, so I'm literally in the fight on Ilhoof, sitting in the chains, yelling on Discord, please guys, someone break the chains. You have to hit the chains, and no one hit the chains, so I died. Unfortunate. And I tried to min max on Prince. So guys, I don't really recommend trying to cloak the enfeebled and the damage that comes after that, unless, well, you can, but maybe not at the start.
Is there a percent chance that you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got the 10% chance that you get hit through. So I tried to cloak it, and then I got hit through it. Unfortunately.
Do you do the thing on Prince where if you don't have the enfeeble, you get in front of the boss to get knocked into the wall, so you don't go flying?
Ooh, I didn't do that. I need to start doing that maybe.
Yeah. So like if you're a melee who doesn't, if you're a melee who doesn't get enfeebled and you want to eat the knockback, or you don't want to eat the knockback or whatever, you just get in front of the boss as he's casting the shadow Nova, and you just get knocked into the wall where the tank is, and then you just go to the other side. So you don't go flying away. And it increases your DPS by a tiny bit, but basically your uptime is higher. Yeah. So no, yeah, I got that DPS brain. It's just like, how do I get more damage here? How do I get more damage?
What about parry haste? Someone in the chat says, the parry haste isn't an issue. Like Prince, we didn't really have issues.
If you have a tank who knows what he's doing, like the parry haste thing isn't that big of a deal. Only phase 2 is where it would really matter. And during that phase, he's taking enough damage already that he should just be getting topped by the healers, and this shouldn't matter too much. So the parry hasting, I think a lot of people talk about parry hasting, but I don't think that a lot of bosses really care about parry hasting right now. I actually don't think you can parry haste Gruul. And there's a few other bosses that you actually just can't parry haste. I believe Prince is one of them that you can, but I don't think if you're defense capped and you're actually geared correctly as a tank, that it's not that big of a deal to get parry hasted. So that's my take right now. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Fuck parry hasting. My DPS matters.
But yeah, for sure. As a rogue, at least from the rogue perspective, there's a very big difference between if you know how to use your blade flurries and you don't, because that's what I noticed from the DPS perspective of a rogue is that at the start, there's no way I can keep up with the walls. We had 2 warlocks who were just Seed of Corruption at the start, and there's those packs at the start. There's zero chance you're keeping up on that. They just destroy. The 2 warlocks just instantly obliterate those 2 packs, and there's nothing you can do to keep up. But then in the second half, after those early packs, as long as you're blade flaring on cooldown at the right packs, you actually do really good overall DPS. Your DPS actually catches up a lot, and you're actually beating the warlocks in a lot of cases if you're using your cleave correctly. I wanted to link you this because this is the statistics breakdown for the classes in Karazhan and their performance. Okay, let's have a look. I think what it's going to be is you're going to see a big separation in regards for rogues going forward. As far as rogues who know how to use cooldowns, I don't think you can Pepega anymore and compete. Wait, wrong one. This one. Okay.
What's that website that we looked at last time? The one that had the it was predicting where things were gonna sit class wise, where they were
for arena ratings or
no. The one that was PvE, and then it listed all the tanks the same.
It was WoW TBC.gg or something like that. It is was that the one where they had
that it? Yes, that was it.
See, I would have thought Elemental Shaman would be a little bit higher, actually.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is actually, God, I want to go back. I want to go to our old VOD and find the previous one because they've changed it and now it's not the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because a good Elemental Shaman just spanks because they just burst and then the mobs are dead. So how do you catch up to their burst DPS? They just burst so hard. I feel like they should be higher.
Because we talked about this last podcast, right? Was it last podcast that we did this?
I'm not sure it was last or the one before. It was a while ago, actually, I think.
There was a place where we were looking at this, and I just want to say that what I had said last time is where things ended up, where they changed everything to, right? Where the way things are ranked now is very much so what we were saying, or at least I was saying. I don't remember. I think you agreed with me to the most part, to the most point. But because they had it where enhancement shamans were above elemental shamans. Remember, they had things like that. They had fury warriors all the way near the bottom, and it's like this is like is a gross underestimation of a lot of classes, and just kind of I felt like it kind of bought into the whole idea of like these classes aren't good, these ones are good, and it just kind of got into what it's like an echo chamber slash a circle jerk in a sense, and it felt like a lot of people just kind of don't use their brain and just kind of take what other people say as law. Like this class is the best. This one's going to do the best here. And it felt like the way things ended up is almost exactly what you and I were saying, right? Where they have like Hunter at the top, right? Followed by Warlock, followed by Mages, followed by Fury Warrior, which used to be at the fucking bottom, right? Then it's Elemental Shaman. And I was like, Shadow Priest is kind of around Enhancement Shaman, Retribution Paladin. The only thing here is I think Rogue is going to go up, right? Like you said, I think Rogue is just going to go up because Rogue out of like, I think all the classes is probably the one that's the most cooldown dependent. And also they are way more gear dependent now. Like Warriors are gear dependent and they will actually go up over time. Like Warrior DPS is just going to go up because they scale with every statistic, hit, crit, haste, all that shit. They scale with all of it. Whereas Rogues mostly scale with haste and hit, which are a little harder to get as opposed to AP and crit, because that's what their resource scales with, right? You get more offhand hits with haste, you get more offhand hits with hit. So they're very gear specific, I believe. So I actually think that Rogues will go up and Fury Warriors will go up over time here. And Enhancement, Retribution, Balance, Feral, like those things are all kind of in where we expected them to be. Same with Shadow Priest. So it's funny, but I actually feel like this is a good example of when you see a list like this beforehand, when people are using speculation, just use critical thinking to figure out where these things would be based on scenarios in the game and the strengths of the classes and their strengths based on what they get, like what they see. It's like, is a warrior going to be good in an instance that has a lot of cleave fights? Well, sure. Are they going to be good on Gruul? Probably not, right? It's like, obviously not. So it's things like that where, like, I guess I'll look at, there's a tab for Gruul's Lair in Magtheridon. Does that actually update? Yes, it does. So when I change it over to like Gruul and Magtheridon, you see like Shadow Priest goes above Warrior, right? And it's things like that that's like, that's expected. These are things that you should expect to have happen, right? With what a class is supposed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a really good example of just like how classes are going to shake up based on data as opposed to based on people kind of celebrating like down with warriors, up with these classes and things like that. Like obviously Hunter's by far and away the best single target. Warlock's up there with warriors in terms of their AoE. But like these are all things that are expected or should have been expected. And I just kind of want to like, not to like, toot my own horn, but just be like, you guys, we kind of know what we're talking about here on the podcast when it comes to analyzing classes and thinking about what they're going to do. I think sometimes we do get it wrong, but I honestly believe that like this is one that we kind of hit the nail on the head. And I wish I could go find the list from before because it was not the list that they have now by a good bit. So I want to say good job, Snow. Pat on the back. Sorry about Rogues right now. They will be better.
Yeah.
They will be better. Mark my words.
Yeah, well, the interesting about Rogue is that the argument against Rogues has always been that they kind of suck in they don't bring anything apart from the DPS. They get screwed by mechanics and things like that. But for phase 1 at least, I wasn't finding much stuff I was screwed on. Gruul was the main one. You get screwed on Gruul having to run out. But apart from Gruul, like I wasn't really finding many fights where I'm like, oh no, the mechanics are totally screwing me. If anything else, I found a lot of fights where I can min-max better by utilizing like Vanish and Cloak better to actually up my DPS more.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm actually not struggling as a rogue so far, at least not in phase 1. Like, I know later phases there's some raid encounters that are really melee unfriendly, but for the phase 1 so far, I haven't really found much that it's actually been hurting me.
We talked about this where like people talk about like melee unfriendly fights, and the strength of rogue is they typically don't count like melee unfriendly versus multiple melee unfriendly, right? Like Gruul does not like a lot of melee. Magtheridon is good for that. It's fine. But like things like Brutalis later doesn't like a lot of melee. Maiden doesn't like a lot of melee. But what I had said was that rogues are a good class to take sometimes because they don't count towards what I consider your melee cap of how many melees you should bring or like actually be allowed to bring, right? Because their cloak allows them to basically negate a lot of the mechanics that punish melee, so they don't count towards that. Like somebody was saying on Gruul, they were like, I think the rogue in my raid was like, I get to choose who lives and dies because I can cloak every shatter. And I was like, oh god, this guy's good.
It's true.
And he did kill somebody one time, and he was like, I get to choose who lives and dies. I was like, wait. And I don't think he took any return damage. You can cloak shatter, right? And it doesn't do any damage to you, even though it's physical. Something really strange like that.
You take the damage, but you never get stunned, so you can just run around like crazy. Yeah, like there were a lot of situations on Gruul yesterday. But So I actually pulled up my Karazhan run from the other day. So I was literally like, how far behind these guys am I? I'm like 300, 400,000 behind these guys, and that was while doing 0 damage on Prince, and people just let me down Ilhoof, so I didn't even get to play like 2 fights. And I was like third overall on DPS.
Take the part. Where's Ilhoof in this log?
Oh wait, this is Prince already. Jeez, we were faster than I thought.
What's the other half of this log? I was like, what is this?
Oh, there was a lot of people who don't understand how Shade works. So the fun thing about having rerolls and people that haven't done Karazhan before is they don't understand the importance of CCing and controlling the Shade stuff. We may have had some warlocks who was Zug DPSing without actually banishing on Shade. That was an interesting experience. Oh, here we go.
Warlocks are. I feel like right now the warlock class leader, or the guy who's like the caster class leader in Reign, he's probably my favorite warlock to play with, because he's like a mage player from Classic who played warlock on private servers, and he will flame every warlock that like doesn't banish or fear things on Magtheridon. Like he flames the shit out of you. He's like, I don't care about your damage. Everybody can press fucking Shadow Bolt, like CC the mobs, banish them, like. And that's what he cares about. And he's like, your class is literally like the best class of this. He doesn't care that like you do so much damage being a warlock. He cares that you guys can actually you can actually like do mechanics and stuff, right? Like that's the thing, is actually contribute in that way. He's like, you're the only class that can do this. You like what the hell?
Yeah. So it was a bit of a struggle with people who had never done Karazhan before. But yeah, I mean, I took back from Ilhoof before Ilhoof, and I was still like 4th. But I think that's because in general, I was a little bit better with my flurry timing than these guys. I think these guys are still getting used to it. But for sure, there was no way I was keeping up with the warlocks on the early trash. They they duo Seed of Corruption, and like the trash pack was dead before I even did anything. What did I even do on those early trash packs? And they were crushing me. But like I caught up towards the end. I started picking up again as well. But yeah, for sure, I think Karazhan will really show which rogues know how to use Blade Flurry and such. Because if you don't use Blade Flurry, that's so much less DPS. Like so much. It's like it's a massive amount of DPS that you lose.
Yeah, it literally doubles your damage.
Yeah, literally. I mean, the whole time on the clear, I was thinking, man, why can't Blade Flurry be on a 1 minute time? I'd be crushing if this Blade Flurry was on a 1 minute time. I would do even more damage. But
Yeah. Did you have to go Imp Expose? Did you Imp Expose?
I did do Imp Expose actually, but I only did it on some bosses because some bosses it's just not super viable because you're running in and out and all of that. So I think it's it's a fun time to be a rogue in that there's a lot of variability in what you have to choose to do. So there's a lot of onus on the player to decide how they want to min-max the encounter, even in your rotations. Like sometimes in your rotations, you have to decide like, oh, I've got this much time. I can fit in a rupture, and then that's how I can get my perfect slice and dice timer here. If I fit in a rupture here, and it's interesting. It's fun, but I think there'll be a lot of skill separation between the good rogues and the bad rogues going forward.
You mean the good rogues and the great rogues, right? Like, there are no bad rogues, right?
The good rogues and the top amazing
the great ones. Yeah,
all rogues are great and should deserve DST, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That is the main thing. We did have a DST drop.
Oh, you got it. Who got it?
Mm-hmm. Hunter. Went to our best hunter. It went to our best hunter, who was our classic puller, and he's like by far and away the best out of all of our hunters. Like his name is Neebs. He's got the bow already, and he's got DST. He's ready to go. So yeah, he's pretty geared. He's also really, really good.
How was your first Gruul and Mag, by the way?
The guild's first mag was is a kind of a shit show. The first Gruul, they were mad at me because I wasn't in the Gruul, but I was like on standby because I was really tired and stuff. But obviously, it would have been easier if I was there. They eventually downed it. They lost server first to a different guild by 1 minute. And then, but they got High King first, and then they lost Gruul by 1 minute. And then on Mag Theridin, they said we have 50 level 70s. Let's split the raids up. And then I was in the B raid basically to tank that because they wanted me to like raid lead it. And that raid was just, I realized the effort level of like a lot of people is really low. And it made me think about it. And I was like, not a lot of guilds actually have 2 Mag Theridin kills. I was actually struggling to find any guilds that had 2 Mag Theridin kills because right now, all of your raid 2s are literally have to be new people, right? Whereas in Classic, a lot of your raid 2s are good people who have alts, right? So it's literally the same people copy pasted twice. So you know that they're competent, they know the abilities and all that stuff. So here it's literally 50 people, and a lot of guilds don't have 50 competent people that can actually do these things. So I actually struggled when I was looking through the logs to find any guild that had 2 Mag Theridin kills, which made a lot of sense to me when I stopped and thought about it. But otherwise, it was like, yeah, this thing it seems really hard for people who don't understand it or don't have good gear for it. So,
I mean, the gear factor is kind of tricky for the tanks in particular. Gruul and Mag. Sometimes it's just like, well, what do you do? We're all doing the right mechanics, but the tank just got one shot. Like, what do we do?
The ads. I'm defense capped. I have a lot of classic gear, and I'm like really well geared. And I was getting hit for like not too hard at the start, like 3K from each ad, and I'm tanking 2 of them, and then they'd start hitting me for 5K each. And then later on, like when Mag came out, he cleaved and it hit me for 10K, and I was like, what? What? Like, I guess I just die. So like it hits from like 8 to 10K, and you have to this is before we had like demo shout and like any debuffs up, but he just like hit me for 10K with cleave, and I was like, wow, I guess you just die if you're not ready for it. So it was really it hits really hard, and that's why like people always ask me, is Fury Proc going to be a thing? And I'm like, maybe on some Karazhan bosses like Ilhoof and stuff like that, but other than that, yeah, you probably aren't dual wielding anytime soon on Mag Theridin. Like he probably just one shots you straight up.
Yeah, I mean the rough part as well is what was the paladin tanks, man. Trying to get your paladin tanks properly geared up. My guild was doing Gruul with a paladin tank, and man, like we gave him all the gear that dropped because we were like, we gotta get this guy geared up. He needs more gear because it's kind of rough playing a fresh tank right now.
Yeah, well, I think like paladin requires a very specific set of gear. And it has to be like a really dedicated player who's like grinding those instances out and getting like 2 piece of his dungeon set and wearing the specific pieces, getting defense capped, and then having like a stam trinket. There's a lot of things that go into it. Like tanking is very particular right now. And there's actually something I wanted to talk about a little bit with like, there's actually like a classic advantage where people were like, how much of an advantage is it to have played classic and have a geared character from there? It's actually pretty high. Having things like Stylines and like even for my character, like I have Thunder Fury, and this is going to do like all the work for me. Thunder Fury is really good. And so is 6-piece Dreadnought. I actually don't know how I'm going to break 6-piece Dreadnought because I'm at defense cap, and 6-piece Dreadnought gives me 5% hit with all my abilities, right? Shield Slam, Revenge, Devastate, Heroic Strike. And right now, if you end up with just like, what is it? Like if you end up with like defense cap, a lot of the times you're missing things. And Dreadnought makes it so like my taunt isn't missing in heroics. My none of my abilities are really missing bosses. I have like 7 to 8% hit, which is really high for a tank right now. And if I get a new piece of gear, I literally take off a different piece and put Dreadnought in that spot. So if it's like if I'm not wearing Dreadnought helm, I like put a new thing in there, and then I put on like Dreadnought boots or something. Because breaking the 6-piece seems really hard to do right now, and there is a big classic advantage. And I'm actually going to share screen for like 1 second here.
All right.
to show this because I get this question a decent amount. To share your screen, World of Warcraft here. Okay, so like people ask me about like Thunder Fury. If you look at this, Thunder Fury is literally more damage than my Devastate, twice as much damage as my Shield Slam, and almost as much as my melee. Like something happened to Thunder Fury. People talk about like the damage and stuff, but it's actually going to proc like all the time, right? Like proc 1 right there, right? And it will proc off Devastate like twice or some shit. There's 2, right? It'll keep going 2, and this is actually really low proc at the moment, but it'll start procking more. 3. There was a resist. There was 4, 5, 6, right? It procs all the time, and even on that like current segment, let's see, that did 1.4k as much as my melee and almost as much as my Devastate. Like Thunder Fury procs an insane amount right now, and I probably won't replace this until like Serpentine Cavern or until something has way more defensive stats. Like I already have Sun Eater, but unless I'm trying to hit defense cap or I'm like really far ahead on threat, I'm not going to swap off of Thunder Fury. Like I'll swap off Thunder Fury on like Gruul or something when I already have like a 10 or 20k threat advantage. But before then, it feels like Thunder Fury is pretty much your BIS weapon that you'll be using. And there's actually like a big advantage to having played that. But like defensive stats mean a lot, right? Like having like because Thunder Fury's defensive stats are 8 stam, 5 agility, whereas this is like 22 stam, 13 defense, 19 dodge, and then you get to like Serpentine Cavern and like the Mallet of the Tides is like 34 stamina. It's 16 defense, 14 expertise. So when defensive stats matter more than your TPS, that's when you're going to be like, okay, now it's like, this is really what you're looking at here. So,
yeah. Oh God. I say, oh God, because my tank still does in my guild still doesn't have a Thunder Fury. We've been trying to get it for God knows how long. We've been doing binding runs for eternity. Back to MC for our binding runs again.
Yeah.
But
the binding run stuff is that's the thing though, is I don't think it's worth it to do binding runs at this point. If you have it, then great. But if you don't have it, there just seems to be solutions of like, go ahead and do use like a slower weapon on pull and then a faster weapon later. But before that, it just seems like there's no reason to like swap off of Thunder Fury for me until I get something that's incredibly well statted for offense and defense, like has expertise on it type thing.
I mean, it's interesting that the difference is so big on the tank front, because on the rogue front, it's almost like the opposite. I get so much gear that as soon as I hit 70, I was just swapping out gear left and right, just random pieces from dungeons. Mm-hmm. Like it feels like as long as you get to 70 and you get into some dungeons, like you don't even need to worry about the gear. I think I swapped out my King's Fall like on just doing attunement. There's a bunch of There's a better King's Fall that's better for offhand. I think it's from like Mechana or something. I can't remember. One of those Botanica like places. I think it's Botanica actually. There's a weapon that's the same as a King's Fall but 1.3 speed. So for everyone using King's Fall on your offhand, that 1.3 speed weapon gives you like 5 billion combat potency procs. So like I was really looking at getting rid of my King's Fall before like I was even attuned for Karazhan. So it's on the rogue front, it feels like it's the opposite, where you don't need anything right now. I mean, I'm leveling my boosted rogue with just full boosted gear and like a rank 14 weapon, and that's it. And he's just questing fine, with the exception of just getting ganked a lot. But that goes with the territory on Felina.
Yeah, I mean that does come with the territory, especially on Fairlina. It's a really interesting, server, to be completely honest. So, yeah.
But what are your gearing plans going forward, as far as your warrior goes?
For my warrior, I'm going for defense cap. Is your number one, like first and foremost, like always be 490 defense, and then stack as much stamina as possible from there without losing defense cap. And then from there, you want shield block value for just threat. So like TPS wise, it's shield block value. It is like your third highest. So it's basically defense to cap. Then you want to have stamina, then as much hit as possible, and then shield block value. So that's kind of like your stat priority or stat breakdown. So yeah, you want to be able to live through every hit possible while not losing threat, and that's basically it. But also defense cap is like the most important thing. It's kind of like how for any DPS class you want to have like at least 9% hit, right? For your like your special attacks. That's basically it. Just be 490 defense. If you aren't, you're griefing your guild, because you're gonna get hit for like 7k by Gruul. and that could potentially be 11k and you're dead. So yeah, be careful with that.
Yeah, the gearing front. And I was saying earlier, we gave everything in our Gruul kill to our paladin tank because we just needed him to be geared. We need a second tank. It's rough for the guilds that are transitioning classes as well, because you need all the new people to get geared up. There's definitely a gear difference as far like just from beta to now. You can definitely feel the difference in like the gear that they're giving to people versus the people that are gearing up now. I was watching Jake and Bake stream earlier. I was telling stream earlier when you had to AFK for a while. I was watching Jake and Bake stream with 2 paladin tanks in Karazhan in full greens, and that was not a fun experience for him. I think he died. I think I had to stop watching after 8 hours. I think I was on my second monitor.
Jeez.
It was like an 8-hour Karazhan run, and they still couldn't finish it because just tanks are just so important. Like the tank gearing is so important. They just couldn't do stuff when your tanks are just dying to every pack almost.
Yeah, and that's why I was a little peeved when I got put in the Mag Theridin raid 2 that didn't kill it. Because I was like the amount of effort I had put into my character and even just like leveling up as fast as possible and all of that, I felt like I was put in a raid that did not have the same level of effort. In fact, when we went to Gruul, I flipped out because I looked at my off tank and it was a druid who had no. He had like heavy cleft hoof or whatever. He had like the armor that's crafted, and then I looked at his sockets and he had his blue sockets were socketed with stam, and his yellow sockets had nothing in them, and he had no enchants. And I flipped out because I was like, is this really who's off tanking for me on Gruul? Like, do you understand that you don't have to match the color of the socket? Just put stam gems in there. I was like, somebody go get him stam gems from the auction house right now. Go get him the heavy knot hide. He doesn't have an enchant on his chest, boots, legs, or hands. Get him 4 kits. He literally gained 80 stamina, like just by socketing and getting those things on his gear. And I was like, that's like over 1,000 HP for a bear. I was like, Jesus Christ. So I was kind of mad because the amount of effort I had put into being defense capped, being ready to tank these big mobs. I was put in a raid where the people didn't put the same level of effort in because they wanted to try and get greedy and do 2 instead of secure 1 kill. So I was a little peeved at that, just like side drama thing, because it definitely feels like the amount of effort people had to put into their character week 1, especially as a tank, to be effective and clear the stuff was very, very high. I literally had another guild. I had the other guild that was competing for top spots in Fairlina. I had another guild contact me about tanking Gruul and Mag Theridin for them if I didn't get into one this week, because they're like, we need tanks. We can't do Gruul without you, and we want you here type thing. So I was very tempted to go tank for another guild.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's always been the fact that I don't think there are good casual tanks. I think for tanking, it's just I don't know if casual tanks exist where they're really good as well. Or if they are, I haven't seen them, because I always feel
tank is very min-max thing.
Yeah, it's such a min-max class and character to play that the difference between a good tank and a casual tank is so significant that I've never met a good tank that's a casual player. Every tank I've met is just a hardcore player.
Well, also, if you meet a tank that's a casual player that's good, you're kind of like, what a waste, dude. Imagine how good this player could be if he actually put time in. You're like, this guy's really good. And he's like, oh man, I'm taking it pretty casually. I get this, I get that. You're like, damn, if this guy put in the effort, he'd be world class type thing. Excuse me. And when it comes to I'm running around trying to gear my character and tank, I do it because I realize that people who play the game alongside me, people talk about being threat capped by their tank. It's a legitimate thing. Your tank should be one of the best people, if not the best person in your raid, or else the other people can't actually play to their full extent, right? Yeah. So if your tank isn't one of your best players, all your other players who are good are probably either going to leave for a better tank, or they're going to, not be able to play the way they want to. So tanks are kind of forced, in my opinion, to be the person who puts in some of the most effort. Because if somebody else is out efforting them, then that person's effort is just completely squandered, because they there's a guy in my raid there's a few people in my raid who already have the mace that's upgraded, right? They already have the number 2 mace, the Dragon Strike, or
the Dragon
Strike.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm yeah, if I wasn't geared, or I didn't care about my gear, they wouldn't be able to swing that thing at all and use the haste proc. So it's very important that your tank puts in a lot of effort.
Speaking of the Dragonmaw thing, interesting on the rogue front. A lot of rogues are now like that were
Maces?
planning on going for the maces. A lot of them are actually skipping it because Blinkstrike has been dropping in price on a lot of servers very rapidly. And people are realizing that the Aldor sword is kind of like halfway to Bis that you can get for Exalted, and it costs you less than 1,000 gold right now on a lot of servers to get to Exalted.
Brand,
yeah. So you can actually get the Vindicators brand if you want a good sword for like 1,000 gold or less on a lot of servers, and that will hold you until you get your Spike Blade.
Because you get like 350 rep per like turn in of fell armaments, and those cost like 10 gold each. And so if you get 100 of those, right, and that's 1,000 gold, that's like 35,000 rep. That gets you all the way there, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty good, and it's pretty easy to do. So yeah, like you said, the mace stuff, I feel like the swords are still better, especially like combined with Wind Fury and all these other like aspects of it. But mace spec is interesting because it does increase your crit damage by 5%. Like, it's a little overlooked thing, but
I mean, the most interesting one has been the Blinkstrike dropping crazy fast in price because it was when it first got put up on Auction House. I think I saw one for like 30,000 gold or something, but it's just been rapidly dropping. Some servers have them for like 5,000 gold right now. Like some of the servers, it's and it's just been dropping because I think it's because of the Vindicators brand. Like a lot of people that would otherwise buy Blinkstrike are just like, well, I can get this other sword that's pretty good as well for like 1,000 gold. Why would I want to spend all that money on a Blinkstrike?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me, and I think it's like completely sound logic too. That the sword stuff is just like super easy to acquire, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that because I don't like spending a lot of money on like a bunch of other things. So it's good for me.
I mean, the interesting thing about Blinkstrike as well is the scaling, because Blinkstrike gets better with scaling because it procs the extra attack and such. So it actually does better with the better gear you have, and worse with the worse gear you have. So when I was running Sims and such, if you replace your gear, your main hand sword like Aggressor with a Blinkstrike early on, it's actually a lot less DPS than you would get it if you were in full Bis and putting on a Blinkstrike. But the problem is when you're on full Bis and putting in a Blinkstrike, you've probably been running Karazhan for a long time. You probably have a Spike Blade by that point in time. So like by the time you actually fully utilize a Blinkstrike, you probably have other options by then as well.
But my question for you is, let's say I'm playing Fury Warrior, right? And I have a main hand of the mace. Is Blinkstrike one of my Bis offhands?
I don't know. What is the answer, Zareen?
I don't know. But one of the best warriors that I know really is like dead set on that. So he's like, yeah, the mace spec proc, or the mace proc in my main hand will increase the number of procs for my offhand on Blinkstrike. So he's like, yeah, it's pretty close to Bis. And I was like, what about like, Spite Blade or something like that? And he's like, it's got stats and stuff, but he's like, I'd rather go for he wants the one off of Doomlord Kha'Zix when it comes out. I don't know what's called, the Edge of Doom.
I got it up on my screen here. It is
Hopeender. That's what it is.
Yeah, Hopeender. Yeah, so I actually made like a little like cheat sheet when I was simming stuff to just have a look at the DPS numbers. But Hopeender is really nice. But I didn't put any of the world boss stuff on my list because I don't know how easy or hard it's going to be to get any of the.
I don't know either.
Stuff. Yeah,
especially because there's so many layers on Fairlina. I'm just like, that's going to be like old World Dragons where it was like, get this one, Kha'Zix up on layer 4, start invites. Like people had scouts. There's a famous guy on our server named Lasian. Stands for the lazy Asian, but he's probably one of the dudes who puts in the most work. He's the guy who like. He'll ping the world boss Discord. He always has summoners. I think the guy has like 6 warlocks that are level 60 or 10 warlocks that are level 60 that he just plants in different places, and he'll summon everybody. And he like war games with himself and refills their shards. He's a pretty insane guy when it comes to preparation and like helping people. So he's always one of the big dudes when it comes to getting world bosses. So I assume he'll be out there pinging people for when world bosses are up on whatever layer, which is the impressive part. So expecting to control them to some degree, or hope to.
Do you guys have an alliance going on, or is it just your guild?
There's always a coalition. There's always a coalition, yeah. The coalition, the idea behind the coalition is it doesn't matter if you get it or I get it. It's just better that the Horde doesn't get it. So the alliance bands together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gets interesting on when they start grouping up with the enemy faction as well. Because on White Main, there were actually alliances that were cross factions, but there were two of them, so it kind of got very interesting there.
That happened as well for us, where like we had a horde guild that wanted to get Doomlord Kazakh at one point, and so they were like, I think the deal was, because we did like a priority system, right, where it was like, you things would drop, and then they'd be like, okay, Rain, do you want to use prio on this? You're number one in line. And they'd be like, yeah, we want to use it on hibernation crystal. And so you'd use prio on it, and then you would go to the bottom of the list of like the 5 or 6 guilds. So people would use prio on different things. And when it came to the horde collaboration, it was like every second or third Kazakh, they got a piece of loot that they wanted. And so they were like rewarded pretty heavily for like working with us. So I think they wanted like the shadow pants really badly or something like that. I didn't think they were after EDs at the time. I think it was the shadow pants, but yeah, regardless.
Yeah. When did Blizzard say they were coming out with world bosses? Actually, they said a date. I can't remember when.
Next week, I think it's the 14th.
Okay, so 14. So I guess it's the same time as Arena. I guess it's the same time as Arena.
Around then.
But yeah, have you seen speaking of Arena, have you seen the honor farming meta right now?
The one where once you get in, you don't want to get out.
Well, you get in and then you farm flags and ally versus winning. You don't actually want to win. You just want to farm as many flags and allies you can, and just drag the game out for as long as possible.
Yeah, in Warsong, just make them AFK, right, and then just like, yeah.
In an Eye of the Storm. I mean, like
an Eye of the Storm, yeah.
So I got a screenshot here. So someone was sharing this with me. So this one is where the Alliance won and they got 144 honor, and the Horde won and they got 735 honor.
How long was this one?
I don't know. It didn't say, but yeah, it's the Horde just focused on the honor, and then the Alliance just went and did your thing.
So they got bonus for the flag captures. Yeah, it's bonus every time you capture a flag. So you want to, Scarborough, I know that guy.
So welcome to the new meta. Where you just delay stuff and farm flags.
I think Ben Rookie like tweeted about it, where he was like, it seems impossible to farm a full set of PvP gear with the 45-minute queues on like Horde side. Which I was talking about this, where it felt impossible to gear up a Horde alt in time for TBC because I had 17-minute queues, but now they're even worse than they were before, right? 45-minute queues, like the Horde are actually going to be at a disadvantage going into arenas unless you've been like giga farming. So I don't know if Blizzard is going to ever implement the mercenary contract where you can fight for the other side. I don't know if they'll implement that, or if they're going to be like, sorry, Horde, this is what you get for rolling Horde because it's a more popular faction. So yeah, that's the benefit of rolling Alliance is lower queue times, but I don't know. But it just seems pretty meh to be on Horde side trying to grind honor right now, and especially if you missed out on getting honor capped.
Yeah, especially if you won Bobka with like 2 characters with honor cap. It's a definite disadvantage there.
Oh yeah,
for sure,
definitely.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The honor farming has been rough for people, like super rough. I've been watching some people try to do it, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't have the time to do that at all. like with all the stuff going on, I have no time to do that. I'm just gonna go with my scuffed arena gear and we'll make do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sad reality, but it is what it is. You know, it's one of those things where you gotta just kind of accept it, and you can't really do too much about it. You just hope Blizzard does something for you. You know. Okay. But I don't know if the solution is going to create more problems or not, right? That's one of those things.
Oh, speaking of causing more problems than not, it's time for well, Tetsu's I think he's almost up to Prince, so they're making pace. But we can talk about weekly bug report while we're waiting.
Poggers,
our favorite part of the podcast every week, of course. Zyrene, have you noticed any interesting issues with TBC lately?
Yeah, there's one that really makes me upset is that there's a lot of subtle bugs that can cause really like game breaking things. Like,
you still don't have your belt yet, by the way?
My belt? Oh yeah, no, I don't have my belt. I have to take it off. I have to take it off and then put it back on for it to show. So there's still that. But I think one of the most annoying things right now is there's a bug where if I swap stances as I get CC'd, it will leave me in the previous stance, but give me my new stances bar. So, for example, if I'm like in defensive stance, or if I'm in Zerker stance because I like intercepted back into on a fight, and then I swap to defensive and get CC'd at the same time, it will give me my defensive bar, and I use default UI for bars. It'll give me my defensive stance bar while being in Zerker stance. So I'll be pressing taunt and it's grayed out. And I'm just like, what's going on? And I'll press defensive stance again and it won't put me in defensive stance. So I'm like stuck in Zerker stance that thinks I'm in defensive stance, and I can't do anything about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's just the start of things. Did you see the one where they where they fixed the spell power healing stuff, but they broke it even more? Mm. That was a fun one. Yeah. So for people that don't know, spell power and healing and other stats that were like on items where you see like plus spell power and such that were coming in from classic, that's all wasn't working. That was all literally just not working. It wasn't giving you anything. Mm. But then they fixed it. But in fixing it, they somehow broke all the old stuff like plus nature damage and such. So all items coming in from classic right now, if they have like plus nature damage or plus other things like that, don't work. So I don't know what they did, but they fixed the spell power and healing and then broke everything else that's coming in from classic somehow, which was bizarre. And primals are also disappearing sometimes when you combine them. You have to relog and then pray that they're in your bags, because sometimes you're going to combine the primal and it'll just disappear. So that has been a fun one. And then epic gems. I don't know if you've seen this, Irene, but yeah, epic gems are in the game through the jewel crafting.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not sure how like good they are, but you know.
Yeah, well, the thing is you can't do anything with them.
Can't do anything, right?
Because we don't have the recipes to make them, but it's just like they're in the game. So I don't know if that will affect the economy later. It's just like a really weird one that we just have them in the game. And it's funny because someone put a YouTube comment on our last podcast, because the TBC launch was so smooth as far as like lag free and such. They were like, you guys are... Well, Doomsday says, look, TBC is so smooth, it's working perfectly well, guys. Well, I don't know what you guys are talking about. and I was just like, I don't know, man. I think people are just leveling and such, so they're distracted by it, and they're not paying attention to the bugs right now. And then...
Getty just said something where it's like 6-hour Eye of the Storm queues. I'm never getting my shaman some weapons. I wish they left OC attached to US. Did they undo that?
Yeah. So the update from last week is after our podcast. I think it was like literally right after, as always. They unattached the Oceania servers from the US and went back to how people wanted it. But now it's the other problem I was mentioning before, where I was like, I wasn't sure if it was as good or bad, because now the queues are insane. Now the queues are insane, so it's kind of like I don't know which way is better now,
because it's the like, monkey paw, right? Like I don't know, but the queues are too long now, right? It's like maybe Blizzard was making the right decision, but I'd want to be able to play the game. Obviously, you want to be able to do both, but I guess it's kind of you either get to have a stable BG or you get to have fast BG. So you choose one. You can't have both. Right.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, is that you would rather have a good experience, but if it's 6-hour queues, you might as well just not have the BG, because people don't want to sit for 6 hours just to play one BG.
Yeah, it seems really counterintuitive, or just you don't get to play the game. So you either get to play the game in a really low quality setting, or you get to play the game in 6 hours. So. I
am glad that they fixed the auction house stuff, though. Or at least it's not
I haven't
as
tried
bad.
it. I haven't tried it.
So it is working faster. I don't think it's like full speed, but it is like at least I can do stuff now, and I'm not sitting there for 30 minutes just trying to buy a few gems, because that was super rough. That's really rough.
Yeah, I just didn't want to list things ever. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Seems bad.
I mean, even just buying consumables sucked. And by the way, did you see the crazy consumables spike? I think for a while there, before people caught on, flask, the recipe to make flask was costing you like 5 gold or something, like all the ingredients. But now people caught on like, wait, why are these so cheap? So suddenly, like everyone's just boom. The price of all the flash recipes have gone up like crazy suddenly. Same with everything actually. Yesterday, because everyone started doing Kara and Gruul, I think mongoose pots went from a few gold each to I think at one point they were 20 gold on white main, just for a mongoose, and it's not even the good one. It's just like a mongoose.
Oh wow. I mean, between there's the mongoose, and then there's like the major agility potion, right?
Yeah, major agility, and then if you don't go that option, then you go the flask of relentless assault. But not a lot of people. The problem is that there's no flask of relentless assaults, or very few, because you have to discover the recipe. So
monothistle is also pretty limited because you have to have monothistle is exclusively for like people who can fly and get to these nodes, and sometimes they have elites around them. So it's kind of like the Black Lotus. Like Fel Lotus isn't the Lotus; it's the monothistle. That's the Lotus. But yeah, mongoose is really interesting because mongoose is mongoose between major agility and the mongoose potion. I believe for Fury Warriors, mongoose is still better than the major agility potion.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know for rogues the major agility one's better.
Yes, because they get AP from agility, right? So anybody who gets AP from agility, the major agility potion is slightly better than mongoose. But for people who don't, like Fury Warriors, then it's actually better to go for mongoose. It's the same thing for Ret Paladins. It's better to go for mongoose. Gives more crit overall.
So that's why mongoose were going insane yesterday. It's all you stupid Fury Warriors that were like.
Remember what I said about Fury Warriors and Ret Paladins will pay big money to make their class relevant? Oh god.
All right, so I think I'm gonna message Tetsu now and see if we can get him on.
This is my favorite Tetsu clip of all time now.
Of all time? Oh, that's a big bar. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it is.
Okay. Okay.
Come on, just execute. No, please. No, please. Pop Tetsu.
Oh my god, dude! This clip doesn't even do the whole scenario justice because at the very beginning of it, he's just like, just deep breaths. It's just Vesuvius, and then it starts off, and he's like, I'm scared, and then he's like, something swung at me, and then he's like, oh, this other guy died, and he's like, oh god, he's like, deep breath, and then this whole thing happens. Oh, it's so fucking good, dude, because that just encapsulates like every warrior's feeling on Vesuvius, and especially in the last week, dude. Like it's the final send off. There's like, you don't want to go out that way with world buffs.
Okay, so Progress did the world first, Kara, Gruul Mag, etc. They leveled up to 70. There was a lot of speculation on how Progress actually got to 71st. From what I understand, it was I guess first, how far did you get just from questing? Because there's been people saying like, oh, Progress got to level 64 just from questing and such, and like from what I understand, that doesn't sound right. I don't believe that happened.
I got to about 62.6%. The reason for this misinformation, I don't know where it started exactly. A lot of people have been spreading it. The reason they think that, right, is the group that got world first, all right, the Haas's group, Kenny Marsh, Windforce, DT, they had their entire goal was Nightbane. So they had a different route from all of our other groups, highly specialized. They're around being the only group to be able to summon Nightbane. Everyone else ignored it. So their group started out, they didn't do turn-ins first. They did 5 ramparts. Then they did some quest turn-ins, and then they did some more dungeons, and then they finished their quest turn-ins, and they did some more dungeons. That's what they did to my knowledge. So that's why people thought that they were entering at 64 when they weren't.
Okay. They make it to slave pens and they were 64 when they first went in, or why do people think it was 64?
I think people are just embellishing and making stuff up because, well, I mean, they went from Azeroth to Hellfire or Outlands they might have actually been 64. I'm not sure. But they had a very different route where they did dungeons before their turn-ins and in the middle of their turn-ins, which was so like it wasn't just all from pre-quest turn-ins that they're entering at 64, right? They had been doing Hellfire and stuff like that for rep because they had a very specialized route for Nightbane.
Okay. So there was something that was going around where people were talking about like the imperfect Drainic object or whatever, the thing in like Blasted Lands you could turn in, right?
Yep.
And somebody said like you could hand that in for experience. I think that got patched or something, but that was like on the beta you could do that.
It was a first time turn in thing where you got XP from it first time you turned it in. On launch, for some reason, the quests were not available though, so my group didn't get that 20k XP bomb.
Okay. Yeah, it felt like on launch they disabled like all repeatable quests giving experience because like I had Dreadnought pieces to hand in, and it was like, nope, nothing for that.
Yeah, T3 never gave experience; it wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
The only repeatable quest that was giving XP, I actually think this might have been Blizzlike and was a custom change. I don't know, but I'm glad they patched it out. Was the Cenarian Battle Gears like Earthstrike and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the one I heard about.
Until a couple days before launch, that was actually in the game.
What was the general strategy, if you can outline? Because from what I understand, the general strategy was you turn in the quests, you get to like 62-ish, then you go do kind of the standard dungeon grind. But then, if I understand it right, outside of that, when you hit dungeon cap, you guys had a summoner team summon you guys all over the place, and that's how you really got the advantage, because you had summoner teams at quest hubs to summon you and do quests while you were dungeon capped, and then go back to the dungeons in between.
So, I mean, I take time to do a big shout out. Like we had a lot of help from some socials in the guild that didn't want to participate in the race in terms of like professions, and especially Shobi, who's been with the guild for a long time. He's just not raiding with us at the moment. He summoned, while we were all doing our quest turn-ins, he ran a summon squad, and he positioned summoners at every location imaginable: Ring of Blood, Slave Pens, Auchendone, right outside of Netherstorm. And anytime we needed to summon anywhere, well, so he set all this up, but all the groups are expected to have their own summoners. So he summoned our summon teams, essentially. All the different groups, we all had our own summon team. But he went and moved everybody there. And whenever we were ready to move our summon team there, we just get invited by him, and he summoned us in. Saved so much time having him do that for us. Actual MVP of the race. But yeah, I mean, all the groups just got ourselves positioned. We set our hearths in certain areas. Every time we did 5 lockouts, we just went back, hearthstoned or summoned, and had very, very highly specialized, optimized, planned out quest routes between every 5 dungeons. We knew how much XP we were going to be at after the pre-quest turn-ins, roughly. We knew how much XP we're getting from every 5 lockouts we do. And then we were just planning out what quests we need to do in between and when we're leaving, what level we're going to each dungeon and stuff.
It took you like 12 hours or something like that, right?
The top group was probably like 12 hours. I think my group was 14 to 16. I can't remember the exact number.
This is your third 70, right? Tetsu, the Warriors, your third 70?
Yeah, I got 370s now.
Jesus Christ. Like part of me is sitting here going, putting in the effort to make it only take 16 hours to like level seems really worth it, because the 40-hour grind that I did, I wanted to die. Like it was real bad. And it's not only that day, just the following days I felt miserable as well. Just messing up my sleep schedule and staying up for so long. So it felt like the amount of effort put in that you guys like front loaded all of that effort definitely paid off. And I would pay money to have that type of like plan laid out. That seems really good.
It was an insane amount of work for the guild, though. It was worth it because we got a world first, but We've been working towards this for. The World First group has been working towards and theory crafting this since Blackwing Lair. I got my group up and running and leveled my characters around AQ, and started gearing them then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Dang,
yeah. So
like that hard.
Yeah, as a social in progress, I was just watching from the sidelines, and like Tetsu's been like you haven't been streaming as much as well. Like you've been so busy prepping, like you didn't even stream that much for so long because there's a lot of stuff that you can't even stream anyway if you're doing the prep stuff.
The end of Classic was just not streamer friendly at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, there was so much prep stuff because even like man, the amount of work that Progress put into prepping, like even to the point where I was telling people on stream, like even Raid 3 was getting on board, bringing in like raiders from Raid 1, like the races, just to get extra quest items and level them up. I feel like that was the real advantage because
I think Raid 3 became a loot funnel raid on pre-patch as well, right?
Yeah. Like for our last, we actually went back to AQ and Blackwing Lair as well to loot funnel all the people that were racing.
Yeah, the pre-patch raids were crazy. I had 3 characters and it was clearing Nax, AQ, Blackwing Lair, MC on like all of them. We tried. Another reason why I didn't stream much, like obviously, is we tried to keep it as under wraps as possible, right?
Yeah.
It obviously eventually leaked to apes, but it leaked so late that we just had such a huge advantage because we already had all of our characters pre-leveled and we had already been bis farming them for forever. The World First leveling group had 3 Atieshes in it.
Jesus.
So that was a massive advantage keeping it under wraps for so long, and that was one reason why it was hard to stream a lot because it was very hard. All my time was going into the prep, and it was hard to like if I streamed any of it, I had to answer questions about it, right? Like if I'm doing an AV grind on my druid, I have to answer questions why I'm doing AV grind.
Mm-hmm.
So
that makes sense.
It was pretty much any time I'm doing anything related to it, it was very hard to stream. I did like the whole Nightmare Dragon quest chain, all the green fragments and everything. Oh,
yeah, I remember as a social in progress watching all the pings. They're like Nightmare Dragons up, and everyone's just like scrambling to go do farm Nightmare Dragons all the time.
Yeah, we had to start scouting and farming Nightmare Dragons again so that we could get objects on all of our racers.
The one that you hand in for the nature resistance ring.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like Progress really min-maxed the questing a lot more than any other guild I saw. Like I saw other guilds doing quest logs bombs as well, but like nowhere near to the level that Progress had like everyone doing the quest log thing to like the maximum that he could.
Now this might be like a little bit of like a loaded question, but I'm just curious. Like, did you guys feel any extra like push to keep things under wrap because of what happened with like Nax at the end with like giving out the strategy and the people? Okay, you guys just didn't care.
No, not really.
Okay.
That was a pretty separate thing.
Yeah, I mean, some people like care about being number one in everything and stuff like that. And I was just asking because I know that if I would have taken it seriously and been like, this happened and I don't want it to happen again, kind of thing. Let's keep it a little closer to chest for longer, and then kind of reveal it when it's too late for people to actually do it, type thing. So that would have been me, but I totally get that.
But yeah, man. Did you guys try do any experimentation with 4-man leveling at all?
Didn't touch it.
Didn't touch it, huh?
We were pretty confident in our routing just being better.
How many did you guys like run practice runs and stuff on beta and everything?
Me personally, I did about 270s. Or was it 3? I think it was 2. I can't remember. I'd have to check my beta account if it's still up. We did at least 2 full 70s, like 60 to 70 leveling.
Well, anyway, we won't keep you. Thanks for stopping by the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know if you got any more questions. It was nice coming on.
Yeah, thank
clearing
you,
some
man.
stuff up. There's been a disturbing amount of misinformation floating around.
Yeah. So it was good to get that stuff cleared up. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you later.
Yep. Thanks for the invite.
Yep. Thank you, Matt.
But yeah. So for like the world first race, there was it seemed like it was pretty much just a one-man race the entire time. Like
Yeah.
because I don't know anyone that was even close, honestly, on the progress front. Who was second? I guess was Ape second in line, because like I know like everyone was scouting out between Ape, Salad Bakers, Progress, but I don't think Salad Bakers were ever even in the equation as far as like the world first racing times, because they were just too far behind when people were checking their levels compared to where Progress was. At some point, it was just like, oh, the gap's just way too big. Like Progress is just hours and hours ahead of everyone right now.
Yeah, it was really funny because they had like the method like race the world first or race to 70 and things like that. And there's all these mages that are like AoE farming, and people are like, Progress already 70. Like, what? I was like, wait, what?
Did you see, by the way, the bug?
Couldn't tell if it was like a copy pasta troll or anything like that. The what bug?
Well, not bug. It's been there since the beta, and maybe it's intended behavior. But where like I think Stay Safe was using it as well, where if you have a bunch of level ones with you dead in the same area, you get the group experience on top of just your normal experience. Yeah, but I'm not sure if that's intended or not, or if that's just how it is.
It's just group EXP, right? Yeah. Having group EXP and like things that are dead in the same area. I don't know. It's weird. It's some strange exploitation of the experience system, but it didn't really give like compared to like everything else you could do. It seemed like it was like minimal compared to like all these other routing things that people were doing in solo slave pen farms. So
yeah, like the amount of just the sheer amount of preparation that Progress did, like it was just mind-boggling. Just mind-boggling. As soon as everyone was in beta, like I never talked about it much because I didn't want to leak anything that they were doing, but like they would literally just, as soon as it came out, they were planning out routes. They already had characters with like they were saving turn-ins for like the Mark of the Champion and stuff like that. Like just loading up these quest logs with crazy amounts of high experience turn-in quests and such. And I think just no other guild had that sort of infrastructure to even do that sort of thing, right? It was just I don't know any other guild that even came close to the amount of preparation that Progress put into that world first race. Like especially with the summoning in between as well.
It's like actually ridiculous how much they put into it. Like I'm glad he gave a shout out to the summoning crew, and I didn't know that they were like socials and people who weren't like like participating. That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. That's the interesting thing about Progress. Everyone's working towards the same goal. Even like the socials in Raid 3, like I do the Raid 3, where it's like retired people with not enough time to dedicate to the to the hardcoreness like what these guys are doing.
And that's always the funny thing is it's people who like are like, oh, I don't have the time to dedicate to this, and then they end up spending like as much time, if not more, than like the other people.
It's because it's like we still care about it. It's just that we fool ourselves into thinking that we can play the game casually, and then you get sucked into helping out the main team still. But I feel that's what happens anyway. But yeah, even Raid 3, the last few weeks of pre-patch, we were doing like every raid except for MC. Like we started doing Black Winglet, AQ, everything, and then bringing in all the races and just like loot funneling everything to them that they wanted. So like I think that's the big advantage that Progress has at Raid 3, and then Raid 4, 5. I think we got up to like maybe Raid 6 even at one point. I don't know how many raids they had going in the pre-patch, but it, like Tetsu was saying, it was literally like every day people were raiding and everything was getting funneled towards the races. It was kind of an insanity at some point.
Yeah, I mean, people are taking it incredibly seriously, and like I was wondering if there's like a chip on Progress's shoulder. It sounds like no, they're just that good kind of thing. So
yeah,
you really like have to just be like, yeah, well, I mean, we came up with these things, so it's not like it's a loss that we didn't get like number one in Nax. They came up with the strats that other people started using, so you can always take kind of solace in that. So I totally get that.
Yeah, I think a lot of them were upset that they lost the original classic first clear, like in MC. And they weren't prepared enough for that. So I think a lot of them used that as fuel for the TBC launch to be like, okay, let's not let that happen again. We're going to prep so much that it's not even going to be close. And it wasn't really close in the end. They were so far ahead.
It was not even close. It was not even like remotely close. It was a bit insane how much further ahead they were.
Yeah, well, I mean, like even when all that Nax Rammus stuff was going on with like the leak strats and all that other stuff, like they were already full neck deep into prepping for the TBC launch, like with extra characters and everything. It was just kind of insane to see. But that's just the advantage. Like when people ask me like the difference between the Progress and every other guild, it's just that the infrastructure, the amount of infrastructure that was there. Like they had a lot of people that quit recently as well, like or who just weren't going into TBC, that stayed on into TBC just to make sure that Progress got that world first, and stayed on just as socials to make sure and help out and such.
Yeah, I mean, those are like the people who make it in there because they they like the amount of dedication that they had. It's kind of like you want to continue to give to this entity that, you know, treated you so well, and that you're there because you were competitive. So I like those types of environments where even if they aren't the ones competing, they're helping each other because they have an idea of like team, you know, like Progress sounds like it's very much so like team oriented. And it's not like this is Tetsu's parsing guild kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like you don't join a guild like Progress to do anything else except go for world first and such. Like that's always been the goal of the guild. Even the raid 3s and the socials know that like when it's time for the push, like we gotta like try to contribute and help out as well.
Yeah, I like those environments a lot. Like pretty envious. So, but honestly, congratulations to them. They did an incredible job. Like, really kind of blowing almost everybody's minds. Yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy because, man, if that amount of prep and then they didn't win, that would actually been depressing. Because
I mean, a lot of people experience that though. A lot of people experience that.
Yeah,
you know, there's only one world first.
But yeah, I'm happy for my guildies, of course. But yeah, you got any other topics to add? I think we covered.
No, not really. No.
Yeah,
I am heavily satisfied with today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For people who might be waiting for the later podcast on Thursday, I don't think we're doing that because I mean it's in like 2 days. So we'll probably just skip this week's and then just go to next week's podcast for the next one, which would make sense.
We'll have more to update and all that, and it'll be at a better time for people. So
yeah. But
they skipped a week for launch or did it in the middle of the two. So. Yeah, apologies on that, but we got it. We got it done. We got it
done. We got some good stuff in. But yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in today. This has been Prepared episode 14. See you guys next week.